giant skeletons of enormous size discovered in New Mexico. This is according to a New York Times article from 1902. Steve McComley, Collective Spark, reports. Researcher Graham Hancock coined the phrase, "We're like a species with amnesia." And it's true. Despite the fact that it seems the story of human history is well uncovered, every single year there are new discoveries made that challenge what we once held to be true. In some cases, there are discoveries which are concealed from the general public for various reasons, as great examples of what that would be the black budget world. There also seems to be amazing discoveries that are completely ignored by mainstream media, and most of these discoveries would shake the foundations of human history. Another great example are the bodies recently discovered in Nazca, Peru, the three-fingered toed human beings whose physical anatomy is far different from that of a human. Another example would be the stories regarding intelligent ancient civilizations like Atlantis, for example, which many scholars now believe to have actually existed. Out of all the information that's out there regarding intelligent ancient civilizations, and more, even if just one of these stories are true, it would completely change what we thought we knew about human history and the history of our planet. I believe the story of our past might be different from what seems to be the only two available options, creationism and evolution. There may be a myriad of other factors involved. These discoveries would also shake the foundations of many people's belief systems. The human race has been kept far from so much information and forced into a specific worldview that's designed to benefit the 1%. In today's day and age, it's always best to keep an open mind, especially when new information is constantly emerging, for those who are curious enough to actually look with which challenges the old. Now, what about giants? Well, we know that the Old Testament in Genesis chapter 6, they talk about giants. Before the flood and after the flood, before the deluge, the flood, and after the flood, did giants once roam the earth? It's been in the literature and lore of multiple cultures throughout human history, from the Mayas, the global indigenous populations, the Holy Bible, the Native American Indians, the ancient Greeks, the ancient Hindus, everybody, and more since we perceive as the beginning of time. For example, the Bible tells us that when the gods were on earth, they were giants. Quote, this, when you bring up in conversation, normally brings up, laughter and people giggling and thinking you're joking, and yet the Bible is full of references to giants in our history, end quote, Michael Tellinger says. Tellinger is referring to the Nephilim. Nephil in Hebrew means giant. Nephilim is the plural of giant, meaning giants. As referenced in Numbers 13:33 of the Bible, quote, we saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked like the same to them, end quote. Again, it's not just the Bible. It's lore from cultures that predates religion as well as indigenous. Tellinger is a renowned author, politician who has made several groundbreaking discoveries regarding lost ancient civilizations that once roamed the earth. And there's an article about him with a picture of him standing next to a giant footprint almost the size of a full human being. There are several examples of physical evidence which exist to support the ideas that giants once roamed the earth. For example, stored in the vaults of the medical schools at Wits University of Johannesburg, there's a part of an upper leg bone with a hip joint that would have stood approximately 12 feet tall. And it's been there since the early 1960s and was found by miners in northern Namibia, in Africa, of course. And it's one of the most precious and rare specimens available today that clearly indicate the existence of giants in southern Africa more than 40,000 years ago. Apparently, in 1883, the Smithsonian, a United States government military-led organization at that time, sent a team of archaeologists to South Charleston Mound. According to the official report, the team discovered a number of giant skeletons ranging from 7 to 9 feet tall. We have to remember that the people then were about 4 or 5 feet tall, so 7 to 9 feet were pretty giant. Now, some of them had a compressed or flat type head, which would resemble similar skeleton characteristics found in Egypt and Southern America. Whether or not this is fake news is highly debatable, as there's a lot of evidence to suggest that it is not. And the list goes on, and what's interesting is an article published in New York Times in 1902 that also deals with this subject. Giant skeletons found, it says. Archaeologists have sent expedition to explore graveyards in New Mexico where bodies were unearthed. Special to the New York Times. Los Angeles, California, February 10. Owing to the discovery of the remains of a race of giants in Guadalupe, New Mexico, antiquarians and archaeologists are preparing an expedition further to explore that region. This determination is based on the excitement that exists among the people of a scope of country near Mesa Rico, about 200 miles southeast of Las Vegas, where an old burial ground has been discovered that has yielded skeletons of enormous size. And this is a part of the article I'm reading for you. So the article goes on to describe the two stones with curious inscriptions as well, and underneath were the bones of a body that, quote, could not have been less than 12 feet in length, end quote. According to the New York Times article, quote, the men who opened the grave say that the forearm was 4 feet long, and that in a well-preserved jaw, the lower teeth ranged from the size of a hickory nut to that of the largest walnut in size. Apparently, the chest of the body had a circumference of 7 feet. The bodies were first discovered by Luciano Quintana. It was on his ranch that specific bodies were found, according to the article. Quote, Quintana, who has uncovered many other burial places, expresses the opinion that perhaps thousands of skeletons of a race of giants long extinct will be found. This supposition is based on the traditions handed down from the early Spanish invasion that have detailed knowledge of the existence of a race of giants that inhabited the plains of what now is eastern New Mexico. Indian legends and carvings also in the same section indicate the existence of such a race. And there's another New York Times article about skeletons that were discovered in 1885. Going back further still, in 1774, settlers found what they called, quote, the Giant Town, end quote, which housed several gigantic skeletons, one being 8-foot-tall male. Quote, in addition to the human skeletons found in New York State, there's also the famous case of, quote, the Cardiff Giant, end quote, a white alabaster-like statue of an 11-foot man who showed an enormous, his goods down there, and hieroglyphic inscriptions. The statue caused a worldwide sensation and was exhibited in New York City to thousands of paying customers before it was declared a fake by the New York newspapers, despite the fact that scholars from Harvard and elsewhere insisted the statue was genuine, according to Richard Dewhurst. Dewhurst is an Emmy Award-winning writer. He's a graduate of NYU with degrees in journalism, film, and television, and has written and edited for History Channel and Arts and Entertainment Channel, PBS, Fox Television, Fox Film, ABC News, TNT, Paramount Pictures. He himself is well researched, and you can read his articles on the ancient giants who ruled America. The story of human history. As mentioned earlier, we don't really know the full story of human history, and when new evidence and information pops up, either from the past or today, which challenges the current accepted framework, it seems like people lose their minds. What we have today, in large part, is dogma instead of actual fact. With all of the discoveries being made and all the discoveries that have been made, which mainstream media completely ignores, we are clearly not being told something about the true origins of humanity. The idea that a powerful group of people protecting their interests by suppressing information in multiple fields is unsettling. For a plant and its people to thrive, it must live in complete transparency. This article from Giant Skeletons, Enormous Size Discovered in New Mexico, New York Times article 1902, was originally created for Collective Evolution, is published here under Creative Commons on Collective Spark by Steve McCamley, and I'll leave links below for you for this. Please comment on this. Thank you so much. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.